Hi, everyone. Cecilia from ISSIP here. We have an ISSIP ambassador joining us from Austria today, Christine Leitner. Thank you, Christine, for joining us today. Could you introduce yourself to the ISSIP community?
Yes, hello, Cecilia. Thank you very much for the introduction. It's really great to be here with you today. Thank you so much again for the invitation. My name is Christine Leitner, as Cecilia has said before. I'm a senior advisor at the Center for Economics and Public Administration, which is based in London and Vienna. And I'm originally Austrian, as Cecilia has mentioned. And I also work as an advisor for the Austrian Ministry for, now it's called Labor and Economic Affairs. It used to be digitalization and economic affairs, but we had a recent change in the government. My focus at CEPA, the Center for Economics and Public Administration, which is actually limited, but it's more of an advocacy group that focuses on public sector innovation and a strong focus also on innovation in the finance sectors. We are a network of experts, so a small organization, and as I said before, now also a hub in the European Union in Vienna, because we actually also are very interested in conducting, European projects, European research projects. In the Ministry for Economic Affairs in Vienna, I'm dealing with trade policy, and there in particular in the framework of the OECD. And there I'm also a delegate to the recently established digital trade expert or friends group, I think it's called. So my focus has been for a very long time on public administration and the impact of technology, of innovation in the public sector. I have worked in the public sector, but also in academia, and I've also dealt a lot with education, in particular, continuous education. And the focus was always European integration, European policies related to public sector innovation and digital government. Oh, so basically, wow. This is where I'm coming from with a mixed background. And I think it's quite interesting to have the insights on how public administration work, and also to have the luxury, if you will, to analyze, public sector from the outside. So this is sort of my mixed background.
That's amazing. Like any other ISO ambassadors out there, you truly, exemplify the T-shaped practitioner, right? I'm curious to hear if you have any interesting projects, especially around, service innovation in public sector. Would you like to share with us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I at the moment, one of the projects that I find quite interesting is I'm working with the government in Dubai, the Excellence Program. As an assessor, I've been doing that for quite a few years, also at, let's say, the central government level in Abu Dhabi. And we're assessing basically the digital government, progress in the various public entities in Dubai, which I find is a very interesting exercise, since, as you might know, they're very well advanced. They have been pushing, the digital and service innovation quite a lot in the last few years. So that's one of the things that I find quite interesting. The mode of assessment has changed there, because they have moved from an annual assessment to a continuous assessment. So we're trying to also automate in the longer run the assessment process, or at least the support for it. So that would mean more sort of consistency in the data you receive, but also probably cost savings, because you don't need to have these input from assessors on these, let's say, more routine kind of assessment tasks on performance indicators, and that is something I find quite interesting. Also, it is quite interesting to compare that to what we're doing in Europe, and to the advances of public service innovation and digital government in Europe. What is also interesting is that we're looking into, and that is one of the focus areas of CEPA, into regulatory approaches at the European Union level with regard to new technologies, and in particular also artificial intelligence, so AI. So in service innovation, regulatory policies, and particularly when it comes to, the cutting edge and new technologies, there is at the moment a lot going on in terms of trying to regulate, these areas as AI. The European Union has made some proposals in that regard, and we're looking into how these regulatory approaches will impact on, let's say, sectors in finance, but also other areas in the public administration. So I'm not a great fan, and SIPA is not really a great fan of pushing, more regulation, but we're talking really about re-regulation and regulating areas that need to ensure that public value is created, that you create, inclusive services for all, and that you balance the benefits for all stakeholders in society.
Absolutely, Kristen. I can't agree with you more, especially when it comes to AI. It has created a lot of benefits for us, but at the same time, there are a lot of unintended consequences that we've observed so far. And then as a, interorganizational, the European Commission, as well as the government, I think that they have the responsibility to minimize this unintended consequences for society as well, right? When it comes to, you mentioned about the digitalization, digital government, and then also I spent some time at the UN before, and then I worked on a couple of projects around like e-government as well. And I'm curious to hear, like digital divide in the world when it comes to digitalization. A lot of, underdeveloped world with limited resources, they're often left out of digitalization and digital government. What we can do to help them or help this world to bridge the digital divide and accelerate the digitalization in underdeveloped world as well, so that they can, make most out of the AI or other emerging technology to advance their economy as well as their society.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I haven't mentioned that before, but for many years I've been on the supervisory board of the Estonian e-governance academy, and I think they are a very good example what they are actually doing, to minimize or to help minimize the digital divide, also in application of the Sustainable Development Goals. They have been sort of helping governments around the world, in particular in low-income countries, to establish an infrastructure for e-government, which is modeled, on the Estonian e-governance model, in particular the X road as the basic infrastructure. And they're providing a lot of services also sort of as open source, particularly they did that during the pandemic, and they're involved in a lot of projects that help, the UN also to support the Digital Goods Alliance, for example. So I think increased effort need to be made to make technology and, innovative services available to those countries. I think there is a lot of funding activities if I look at the European level, for example. So the digital is a real important factor in all development projects and programs of the European Union. Plus, there is a lot of international donors, and there's a lot of cooperation and key actors in Europe and across the globe who are trying to establish, these resources for those countries that have sort of less, power to invest. So one key, I think, is open source. One key is like the Digital Goods Alliance, that you make available resources for those countries that cannot afford, and that you're trying to also support them in establishing, let's say, let me call it low-cost solutions, which are out there, and open source as much as we can. So I think there's good examples across the globe, and if you want to hear more about it, I can definitely come up with this in one of these discussions with ISSIP. It's an interesting area.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for your answer. Before we close the call, I would like to ask you the same question that I asked to many other ISSIP ambassadors so far. So if you have any suggestions to the ISSIP community, what would that be? Or any suggestions to ISSIP leadership?
One of the things I think what you're actually doing now is to sort of bring, the people in the network closer to each other, so we get to know each other. I think this is a very interesting and a very good move. Also, I think in terms of the topics, if you want to, in my view, because I think that the public sector is extremely important, not only as a big purchaser, but also, because of, and as you are, having worked for the United Nations, the public good, the public interest, the public value is very important to me. So I think one should probably also make it clearer to the network and the stakeholders what benefits, the work ISSIP does and service innovation is out there for the public sector at all levels. So I think that could be promoted. And I think one of the aspects that I would like to see more highlighted is also these challenges we have in regulating and re-regulating, the emerging technology areas.
Sure. And also, I think that, there's no standardized regulatory framework that can be used at the intragovernmental level, right? So that is a big challenge, right, when it comes to the regulation of AI, because AI has become ubiquitous. Wherever you go, you see them. But then regulatory can be a little bit tricky, right? So I think, what you are doing is, I think, bringing a lot of benefits to, our service innovation community as well.
And if I may, a second aspect is, I've not mentioned that before, but it's also one of the projects we've been dealing with, is empowerment of the people, and democracy, and how, technology and services can support this. So I think that is another area that could make it more relevant. There's a lot going on in this area about, engagement, empowerment of citizens, but also all stakeholders in society. And I think that is one area that could be further developed as well, to make it sort of more tangible for individuals, what it brings, service innovation for the individual, for the citizen. And also rebalancing, the benefits, which is an important issue at the moment. Post-COVID, we see the divide is getting larger between the rich and the poor. And I think there should be a focus area maybe in that regard as well, to focus on the citizens, on the individuals and the benefits for them.
Exactly. And then also, I'm sure, there must be lots of ISSIP members who are interested in service innovation in public sector. So you might just want to connect with them, or they might reach out to you after they watch this video. So yeah, you might, it would be great to see you connect with them and to see more work around service innovation, specifically in public sector as well. Thank you, Kristen, for joining us today. And thanks everyone for tuning in today. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to ISSIP YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone.